and I'm actually hitting play right now so that we can post the session on our website um, after the presentation. You'll be able to find that as well as the slide deck from today's presentation. Please make sure that your microphone is muted to cut down on feedback. And if you're just joining, we're asking everyone to please rename yourself with your name and your organization. So I'm going to share my screen. And go ahead and get started with the agenda for today's meeting. We have a lot to cover. We have a lot of information to share with you. And we're basically going to be having 3 parts to the session. There'll be a walkthrough of the operating support grant guidelines and the process. Then we'll take a short break. Then we'll have an online preview of the applications in Submittable and questions at the end. And to welcome everyone today, I'd like to introduce our President and CEO, Linda Sullivan. Linda, are you there? I think we might have lost Linda, but when
I'm back.
Oh, okay, great.
I'm sorry, I'm cutting in and out, and I do come back, but I'm going to quickly just say thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're really excited about getting our next round of general operating support out to you all. And I want to thank
so sorry that we are losing Linda's audio. I know that she wanted to thank you all for being here and also thank our staff for being here. Oh, sorry, Linda, we missed some of your message. Sorry.
So I just also wanted to thank the county for providing the funds that we distribute to you all. And I want to thank our grants committee, board committee, for chaired by Susie Bissell, and I believe Lila Gordon is on with us, for their oversight and guidance. And special thanks to Lisa and Kimber, who do all the work behind the scenes here and make these grants possible through the guidelines and application management. So I hope everyone gets a lot out of this session today and applies. We know the
We lost her again.
I'll get off now. I'll just stop my.
All right. Thank you, Linda. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see, we went through really briefly the 3 sections of today's presentation. If you'll just save your questions until the end, you can type them into the chat as we're going through the presentation, and then we will read those questions from the chat. And then also, as we get to the question section, you can raise your Zoom hand and we can call on you to unmute and ask your question then. So I just want to briefly give an introduction to ArtsFairfax. Really excited to see that there were some new to us organizations joining us today. So I just want to briefly introduce ArtsFairfax. We are the county's designated local arts agency. And our mission is to be the voice of the arts, and we're dedicated to fostering a dynamic and diverse local arts ensuring that the arts thrive by providing vision, leadership, capacity building services, advocacy, funding, education, and information. And we do that through a amazing team of staff and we're lucky to have with us here today some of our communications team. And I'd now like to introduce Dana Stewart, who is the Director of Communications and Advocacy. And she has some information to share with you about your communications and acknowledgement requirements as a grantee.
Thank you, Lisa. Can you go to the next slide in the PowerPoint, please?
Mhm.
As Lisa said, my name is Dana Stewart. I'm the Director of Communications and Advocacy. And usually they save the best for last, but they're putting the communication team out first because we are the best part of this grant process, because we are here working for you. We want to promote your events and get audiences into your studios. So I want to introduce you to your partners. First up is Manuela, who is relatively new to ArtsFairfax. Manuela?
Hi, everyone. My name is Manuela. I am the communications assistant at ArtsFairfax. I am in charge of managing our social media platforms, our events calendar, our arts directory, and our newsletters. In all our social media platforms, you can find important updates and deadlines, events, job opportunities, and more. So be sure to send us a message or tag us in your post so we can reply or repost. And you can find us under ArtsFairfax. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Manuela. Now I want to introduce you to the wizard behind the screen, Karan, who is there always helping us with our technology issues. Karan, can you say hello?
Hello, everyone. My name is Karan. I'm the Information Technology Manager at ArtsFairfax. My everyday the website to internal technology issues and even external at some point. So during this presentation, if you experience any difficulty with technology, please feel free to email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat.
Thank you, Karan and Manuela. Next slide, please, Lisa. As I said, we are your marketing team. We're your marketing partner. But the only way we can successfully market for you is if we know that information. I hope many of you have seen our new website that we've launched this year. We're very excited about it. We've made a lot of improvements to it based on your feedback on how you use it in the back end. I'm sorry, my dog is going crazy. Somebody's at the door, as to be expected. And also on the front end, we really want to get audiences excited about the arts. So that's why the redesign went into place. On the new calendar, we still have the event calendar and the arts directory. Manuela talked about the social media. This year, we launched a monthly newsletter called the Arts Guide, and that is intended to go out into general audiences to get people excited about your events. We have a monthly column in the Fairfax County Times where we write about the arts, but we also pull out and promote certain events through there. And then also new to us this year are Google Ads, and I will talk about that briefly in just a minute. Lisa, next slide, please. As a grantee, there are a couple of requirements as part of our partnership that we ask of you. First is our logo needs to be on your website and also needs to be on all printed material. If you have any problems with that, please let us know, but that's very important to both of us. Also, we ask that you upload all your activities into our events calendar and also to create a profile in our arts directory. Next slide, please, Lisa. So I want to talk briefly about Google Ads. This is new to us this year, and you'll be hearing more about that later on. We are the recipient of up to $10,000 every month in Google Ads. We are passing that on directly to you. But in order for that to happen, we have to know your information. And we're getting that information from our events calendar and from our arts directory. That is the sole source that we're going to. That is a requirement of our grant. It's not something that we put into place, but the information has to be on the website for us to pull from it. So please take advantage of this. This is not only for you as a grantee, but it's open to any nonprofit arts organization and artists in Fairfax County and in the cities of Falls Church and Fairfax. So please take advantage of that. I know some of you have tried to get into the back end to upload your events. We're still having a couple of glitches that we're working out. Within the next 2 weeks, we plan to send an email out with instructions on how to upload your events. If you have an event coming up within the next 6 weeks, email us. We'll put it on the calendar for you. But going forward, we're going to ask that you upload it yourself. The sooner, the better. Don't wait till the last minute, because these Google ads work. The sooner you get it onto the calendar. So thank you for your time. We're here to be your partner, so please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Dana and Manuela and Karan. And the website really does look amazing. And I hope everyone has had a chance to look at your listings in the directory. And we're really excited about all these new improvements that will also make it easier for you to upload your events. So now we're going to get back to focusing on the ArtsFairfax grant program, and in particular, what you're all here for today, the FY22 operating support grant. So the organization distributes over $500,000 annually in county funds. These are primarily from Fairfax County government that we distribute, although last year we did do a private funding drive for artist grants for the Emergency Relief and Recovery Grant. The operating support grants are funded in full by the county. So we're so grateful for that. And we are expecting that we'll have flat funding for this year. So this is a competitive grant process. In a normal year, we would have had 5 grant programs. In addition to the operating support, we would have project support, organizational and professional development, which includes the Next Step grant category, the artist grant, which also includes the poet laureate, and the fast track grant. And last year we had a new category. It was the emergency relief and recovery grant as well. For this year, we are still in the process of determining what other grant programs, if any, will be offered for FY22. And we'll be making announcements about available funding and needs as we get more information. So we're excited today to be able to roll out the new operating support grant program. We've made a lot of changes for this year. It's sort of a remix. I like to think of it as a remix between our previous operating support grant program and the emergency relief and recovery grant. So we have tried to make a lot of changes to be more flexible given the current situation, and looking forward to rolling out all those changes in the guidelines and the application to you today. But the purpose of the operating support grant program remains to advance the arts in Fairfax County by supporting the goals and objectives of the county's arts organizations, helping them to maintain and develop their programs, services, and facilities, to maintain organizational stability as a platform for becoming more resilient, adaptable, and nimble for sustainability, change, and growth. And the grants recognize a broad spectrum of the county's cultural organizations. So the specific goals of the operating support grant program are to provide this flexible funding for support of both established and emerging arts organizations, to encourage wide participation in the arts by expanding exposure to and incorporating Fairfax County's diverse voices and traditions in cultural programming that's available to all residents of Fairfax County, to promote opportunities for a diversity of cultural workers, leaders, individual artists, and arts organizations to create, present, and celebrate their artistic endeavors and traditions, and also to be a catalyst for increased resiliency, transformation, and expanded resources to support arts organizations through public funding. So This graphic is an overview of the grant process. So today we'll be talking about what you need to do to submit your application. What happens after the application deadline is that your application will be reviewed by our staff for eligibility and completeness. And we'll make sure that all of the links are functioning and get ready to send that application to the panelists that have been recruited to review your application. And there will be a panel meeting, actually 3 days of panel meetings that will take place in May. And Kimber, our grants manager, will be, and I just realized that I did not introduce Kimber. So sorry. Kimber will be co-moderating this presentation with me shortly, and he'll be popping on to see you, but he will be recruiting this panel, the panelists, for 3 days of reviews in May, and he will be contacting you to let you know when your application will be reviewed so that you will have an opportunity to join what we expect to be online panel meetings once again, but we're going to do our best to make those accessible to you so that you'll be able to hear the panel reviews through this round. So then the panel meetings will take place in May. After the panel meetings, we create a ranking, and I'll explain more about that a little bit later, that combines the average scores of the applicants using the Z-score, and we provide that to our grants committee. And I believe that a member of our grants committee is joining us here today, Lila Gordon. Thank you so much, Lila, for being here. And the grants committee reviews those proposed funding scenarios and determines recommendations to the full board of ArtsFairfax for the grants for FY22. And we will be making the award announcement of the grants in early August. So on to eligibility. And I believe I'm still on for this slide. Kimber, jump in and let me know if I overstep the section that I'm going to be talking about.
No, you're good.
Okay, thank you. So eligibility criteria have remained the same, but again, since we have so many new potential applicants with us today, I'm just going to go through those really quickly. All of this information is in the grant guidelines. The grant guidelines are really the source of everything, and those are linked in the applications. They're also going to be posted on our website and emailed out to you after the presentation today. So that is a really important resource for you. You don't need to be, memorizing everything. We're also going to be posting this presentation. So just going to run through these really quickly. So the operating support grants are open to organizations who have a core mission in the creation, exhibition, presentation, production, or performance or education in an arts discipline, and must be standalone nonprofit 501c3 organizations with either current or pending nonprofit status. You also need to have regular activity in a minimum of 4 different months in the year or 120 days out of the year. And the organization also needs to have an address of record within Fairfax County, the city of Fairfax, or the city of Falls Church. Then we have these special locality-based criteria, and you need to meet at least 2 of the 4 criteria. Great if you can meet all 4 of them, but the requirement is 2 of the 4. present at least half of your artistic activities within Fairfax County, City of Fairfax, or City of Falls Church. Meet, rehearse, exhibit, and operate within Fairfax County, City of Fairfax, or the City of Falls Church. Have at least half of your board members either work or reside in Fairfax County or the cities of Fairfax and Falls Church. Or the fourth of the criteria for the locality are to verify that at least half of your attendees or participants at your performances, exhibits, events, and activities are Fairfax County, City of Fairfax, or City of Falls Church residents. The additional eligibility criteria are that you need to be in compliance with all local, state, and federal laws. That's why we ask you to submit your 990, not including any schedules. An organization that does not have 501c3 status is able to apply for an operating support grant using a fiscal sponsor. And if you need more information about that, or that's something that interests you, please contact either Kimber or myself, and we will help you with some additional information for that. An organization must have independently prepared financial statements, such as an audit or a treasurer's report. The audit is only required for organizations with expenses of $600,000 and above for at least 1 year. And all final reports need to be submitted for grants previously received from ArtsFairfax the previous year. So that covers all of the eligibility criteria. And now, who is not eligible? So the following types of organizations are prohibited from applying for funding through the operating support. And that includes art divisions or organizations with an arts program within a larger 501c3 organization. They are eligible to apply for project support grants if we move forward with that, but not with the other grant categories. So that would be like an umbrella organization. Also not eligible for these grants are organizations that receive line item funding from Fairfax County or the state of Virginia, as well as departments of George Mason University, and nonprofit organizations and foundations that support county agencies. These organizations are not eligible for operating support. Again, just a quick reminder, if you do need to apply with a fiscal sponsor, please contact our staff and we will help you with that. On to the grant restrictions. So all of the funded activities must support activities, programs, and projects occurring within Fairfax County, City of Fairfax, or City of Falls Church, have qualified artistic or scholarly administrative and management leadership. This could be either professional or volunteer, capable of completing the grant-supported activities, programs, and projects, and occur within the dates of fiscal year 22, which is July 1st of 2021 through June 30th, 2022. There are several other activities that cannot be supported by this operating support funding, and that includes fundraising activities, construction or renovation costs, political advocacy costs, activities not open to the general public. So we've had the question before about this restriction. If it's a class, as long as it's open to the public to register, it doesn't need to be completely open to the public. Also, the funds cannot be used for debt retirement, pre-grant cost, or any faith-based activities. this is going to be great news, I think, for everyone, that we have received permission from Fairfax County to waive the matching requirement, both for FY21 and FY22 grants due to the challenges of the COVID pandemic. So we still do hope that you'll be able to use these grants to leverage additional private support, but the 2-to-1 matching requirement that had traditionally been in place for this grant category has been waived, and that will apply to anyone who received an FY21 grant, as well as anyone who will be receiving FY22 grants. So the way that we divide the applications for the panel review is according to budget level. And we have 5 different budget levels. And these budget levels are particularly important this year because we are utilizing a short form this year for smaller budget organizations that have expenses for a fiscal year of under $50,000. Those organizations will be completing a short form, and we'll get into more detail about that later. Other organizations with budgets of over $50,000 will all need to complete the long form, but you will also see that we have streamlined the form quite a bit, trying to make it a lot easier for you all to apply this year. And we will be looking at how that is going to look a little bit later. So let's see. How do you determine your budget size? That would be through your total expenses from a recently completed fiscal year. You can use either FY19 or FY20 to make this determination, but you may not include in-kind expenses or any pass-throughs in your budget level calculation. Then you'll also be able to apply as usual for 15% of your total expenses from either FY19 or FY20, whichever you choose to utilize for making this calculation. And we'll ask you to upload the financials that you've based this upon as part of the eligibility required documents uploads. If you are going to apply with fiscal sponsor, you would use the applicant organization budget, not the fiscal sponsors. But again, please reach out to Kimber or I if you need help with that. I mentioned before that pass-through money should not be included in the budget calculation. So pass-through money is money that's collected by an organization and then immediately dispersed. And we have a lot of examples of that in the grant guidelines. And Kimber is going to take over now and talk about what is new and different for FY22.
There's a lot to be said for new and different. The pandemic, as you well know, has turned things upside down and inside out, and that is us as well. We've really started from scratch with the operating support program based on the fact what the pandemic has done and what you've been experiencing for the last year. So as Lisa mentioned, this is sort of a hybrid remix. I'm calling it a transition from the Emergency Funding and Recovery Act stuff we did last year. And we're focusing more on a traditional operating support grant to support your organization and mission. I think the biggest change that Lisa touched on was the fact that we recognize that smaller organizations have less capacity and we want to make their lives easier. So we've created a short form for them, which essentially cuts out a lot of the questions that we ask on the longer form and has fewer attachments and all of that. If you are an organization under $50,000, you only have to use the short form. Everyone else over $50,000 will have to use the long form. So don't do both if you're a small organization. Just do the one or the other if you're over 50. The other thing that I would point out too is that both these applications, we are very flexible in terms of what fiscal year you're going to use for providing data in terms of your activities, in terms of your partnerships, your budget figures. So you can use your FY19, your FY20 budgets to fill out the application data from that. Just pick one or the other. We recognize that, you know, the pandemic year is not normal, either in your budget, your activities, and all of those things. So be aware of that. Also, this whole process, what you'll see this year, what we want you to do is tell us how this year has affected you and tell that story. And we also want to know what you envision happening in the next chapter and how you will get there, and how you're thinking about actualizing the goals that you're setting for yourself. That's really the key, that everything lines up with your mission. Everything in that application lines up with your mission. Basically, you're going to do what you say you're going to do and tell us how you're going to do that. Coinciding with the pandemic, as you know, and following the news, has been a reckoning with social justice. That has become a significant change, and that's reflected in this application as well. We're really focusing on diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. There are threads and questions throughout the application focusing on that, because that's not only a focus of the county now, it's our focus as well. We have embedded data tools in your organizational profile, which is on you. You know, we haven't done that in years previous. That census data and the resource list that is at the end of this application, you'll see, will provide you with the data you need to talk about the demographics of your community, who your constituents are. Essentially, that question's more about telling us, who are your constituents, who do you serve, and where do they come from, and how do your programs kind of match up with that, with your community. So that's the organization profile. I think you'll see diversity, equity, inclusion, and access reflected in the review criteria. That's intentional. Again, I will say, we recognize that every organization is on a spectrum, if you will. Some are just starting out to begin to address this issue. Others are further along. That's really not the point. What we really are interested in is telling us where you are on that spectrum. How are your programs addressing these issues? How do you see yourself in the future addressing these issues? And I think that you're not going to be competing against one another. It's more about where you are on that spectrum and explaining where you are, what you want to do, how you're doing it, what your challenges and opportunities are regarding diversity, inclusion, access, and also what are the challenges and opportunities you see, for your organization in future, and particularly in light of the pandemic. What are the challenges and opportunities that come out of the pandemic, and how that might change your organization, how that might change what you're thinking about in the future. All of these things are part of the questions we're asking. So you'll see we have eliminated the whole package of Excel charts that we normally provide you. Instead, we embed two tables in the application we're going to go through in a little bit. One's on partnership, one's on programs. And with your programs, rather than list every single performance, we're asking you to group those under one heading. So if you have a main stage season, just put performance, main stage, and how many events you're producing. We're trying to basically create buckets for all of that stuff. Your financials, we recognize that this has not been a normal year for your budget. And so we're not going to focus like we have in the past in great detail on your financials. So you're going to have a choice of the documents you can upload to give the panel and us a sense of where you stand in terms of your financial situation. And again, it's for us, what we're looking at is how stable are you? How are you managing? What challenges are you facing? You know, that's really the key for the financials this year. We're not going to be focusing so much on your budget surpluses or your deficits and those kinds of things. Those are important, but we're just trying to get a picture of how you're doing and what you envision, how you're going to manage your recovery, if you will, in terms of your finances. I think there we go. I can look at the slide. I was just thinking to myself, have I covered everything? I think the workshops, we are doing an entire year worth of workshops just on diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. So you can register for those on our website. Again, that's, you know, aside from the resources we provide and links we provide to help you with the application, these workshops are also for you to get more in depth, look at how to deal and address some of these issues. Diversity in our broadest terms, we're thinking about gender, age, race, religion, ability, income, education, sexual orientation. So it's the whole gamut of diversity in our county. Lisa, you want to go to the next slide? I think I've pretty much covered all of this. Lisa's pretty much gone through the review process. The first thing, once I get the applications, I have to go through and make sure that all the eligibility documents confirm that your answers are correct in terms of eligibility. If it is ineligible, it'll be rejected without evaluation, but I will more than likely, if something is missed or I have a question, I will more than likely and will reach out to you to see if what I'm seeing is correct and or you know there was some kind of glitch. Again, the same thing is true with the incomplete applications. If something's incomplete, if there's something I missed, I will definitely be reaching out to you and say, you didn't provide this, could you give me this? We're very flexible. So if you submit something and you forgot something, don't panic. More than likely, I will be in touch with you and to follow up and make sure we have a complete application for the panel to review. And the applications, obviously, they're all reviewed. We have 3 panels. Generally, we break these things into the size of the budget. So there will be 1 panel focused on the smaller organizations, and the other 2 panels will take the larger organizations. All of the reviewers have expertise and background with organizational management, disciplines, etc. Lisa, next slide. The review process. We're going to do this online. We will contact you to let you know how you can connect. Again, these will be virtual panels. We didn't allow people to join us last year because this was all new to us. We were just doing this by the seat of our pants. So to make things simpler on us, we just didn't invite everyone to attend. But this year we're going to take the plunge. So be on your best behavior. The final decision for funding will be made by our board of directors after it's reviewed by the grants committee. And Lisa's touched on all of this. Me will recruit the panelists. I'm going to check for all eligibility and completeness. We compile panel scores. Our role in the panel meetings essentially, we are observers. It is up to the panel to have a discussion and examine every application based on what's presented to them. We will not bring new information to the table. We will answer their questions and that kind of thing, and provide any kind of technical assistance. Lisa? Next slide. Ah, yes. We use something called a Z-score. This is something that accountants use, and basically what it does is it allows us to take the panel's scores and create an average or a percentage, if you will. So we have a sense of it provides a very fair level playing field for how these are ranked by the panel in terms of their scores. That is then converted into a percentage, which gives us a number for what the funding might look like. And then a percentage based on the amount requested. And those are, those recommendations are then forwarded to the grants committee and then approved by the board. We, just to make sure that we didn't miss anything, because neither Lisa or I are accountants, this actually goes to our accountants to make sure that our numbers are correct and that the final awards are fair and accurate. The awards this year will be made and announced in July of
August.
August. Okay, fine. Sometimes it's July if we're lucky. It depends. Generally what happens in July is that we have to wait for the county money to get into our bank account before we can actually physically send out awards. So it's a little funky, but we will try.
If we can do it sooner, great. But
yes,
we're going to plan on early August.
Yeah, we're going to turn these around as fast as we can, because we know how important this is to get money in your bank accounts.
Okay, so we also changed up the evaluation criteria. And as Kimber was describing, we added a new section to the application, or actually pulled out a section, which is now called the organizational profile. And so the panel will be evaluating your applications on these 5 criteria: the organizational profile, the quality of the programs, community engagement, organizational effectiveness, and the financials. And all 5 of these criteria are equally weighted. So these are, sorry if this is really small print for everyone, but this is all in the guidelines, the very detailed rubric of the criteria. And you'll note that there are some differences between the long and the short form. So the long form applications will be reviewed on all of these criteria. And the short form, if you can see my cursor pointing to the little asterisk, those are the criteria that will be used by the panel to review the short form applications. We have a lot of resources available to you to help you to complete your applications. So on our wonderful new website, which we were talking about earlier, you'll find the grant guidelines. Those will be updated with the new guidelines within the next couple of days. You'll find this presentation will be posted. The video will be posted. We will have online application instructions. The previous recipients of the operating support grant. So if you apply and you receive funding, you will also be listed here after the awards are announced in August. Our grant communications kit and branding guide. And also wanted to call your attention to the excellent support that is available through our online application management system, which is Submittable, the same system that we've been using for the past couple of years. They have online support as well as a phone number that you can call to get help and an information bank. So I also wanted to talk about some other resources that could be helpful to you in completing your application, particularly with respect to the emphasis on diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. We looked at this last year for anyone who was at that information session. But this is basically a graphic that shows the distribution of arts organizations throughout the 9 Fairfax County magisterial districts. And you can see on this graphic that Lee, Mount Vernon, and Springfield districts are relatively underserved by the arts. So that's something that if you are an organization in one of those districts, or you're doing programming in those districts, be it with a school or a community center or anything in those districts, I would definitely recommend or suggest that you highlight that in your application. That is one way that you would be serving the community in really important outreach. Then we have some additional resources for you. So we've been doing a lot of research in conjunction with the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Access workshops that are happening, as well as our own strategic plan and our own diversity statement. And so we wanted to share those resources with you. And so we compiled them all into this document, and this will also be on our website and emailed out to you. The first section of the resources are more general, in case you need help determining what are the Fairfax County demographics, what are the demographics of your own particular neighborhood, or if you're a city-based organization of your community. You can find all of that information here. And as Kimber mentioned, we also included a link to this census site within the application. So it's really easy to access that data. Also, in case you're not aware or you haven't looked at it yet, Fairfax County also has a new strategic plan with a cultural and recreational section, which is great news for all of us that has been prioritized and called out in the plan. And I highly recommend that you take a look at that, as ArtsFairfax is supporting all of these county initiatives, as well as the One Fairfax initiative, which is the really important policy, which is in the process of being implemented throughout the county agencies for diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. It's an equity, social equity policy. And if you're not familiar with that, we've also provided a link to that down below under diversity. Let's see, I also want to call your attention to Americans for the Arts Aesthetic Perspectives Report. You'll see shortly when we actually look at the application itself that we have utilized a lot of this language that they've recommended for funders. And so these detailed explanation of this language and examples is provided in this report. Let's see. We have a link to our map of Fairfax County arts venues, which is something that was developed in conjunction with the Master Arts Plan that could also be helpful for you in seeing also the distribution of the arts throughout the county. The Opportunity Index, which is a tool from the Community Foundation of Northern Virginia with a lot of really great information that can help you in responding to these community engagement questions. A link to all of the Title I schools through Fairfax County Public Schools. And also a link back to 2 years ago, we did a one-day workshop on accessibility, and there's some really great resources that are still available on our website from that as well. I'll just call your attention to this one last item on here. If you are interested in reading more about an equity-centered community design approach, there's a PDF of a really excellent resource for you to consult there. So do you want me to do this part, Kimber? Or is it back? You're doing panel insights, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're running a little bit behind schedule already. So let's try to get through this quickly. And then we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we'll go to the application itself.
All right. I'm going to make this really quick. So essentially, a strong application is intentional. In other words, everything hangs together. You don't leave. You don't bring information. You don't put information in the application that doesn't have an answer that you haven't addressed. If there are any open questions, if you're raising questions with a panel like, what do they mean by that? Don't put it. Just basically focus on answering the question, lining up your answers with your mission, because tying everything back to your mission and your goals and how you're thinking about your organization and how it's meeting the questions, that's the key. These budget bullets you see here, budget includes diverse revenue. You can ignore that for this year because we're not so focused on that. In the past, we do a lot more in-depth look at budgets, but we're not doing that this year. Strategic priorities are important. And I think that, given what you all have been through with the pandemic and everyone else, how those priorities have changed or may change, or where you are in terms of your strategic planning process is important. And you can, if you have an executive summary of your strategic plan, that's something good to include with your supplemental materials. Thinking about your supplemental materials, work examples, both of those should support and illustrate what you provide in the narrative. And a strategic plan is one, part of that. Your use of data, that means that you are using this demographic data to kind of inform your decisions. You're connecting with the community in a way that brings them into your conversation about how you operate. You're also bringing in staff. It's not just about your administrative staff, but it's about everyone in your organization and how they plug into how you make your decisions. So that's, that in a nutshell is what we look for in terms of a strong application. In terms of condition, Lisa's, go ahead, that's fine. Lisa's already mentioned the duration of the grant that begins July 1, 2021, and activities have to be completed by then. And it expires in June 30, 2022. You saw the eligibility criteria that basically you have to maintain your eligibility for the life of the grant. The award amounts range from 1,000 to 50,000 and are no more than your, basically no more than your 15% of your actual expenses. So your request basically can't be any more than 15% of your actual expenses. The addendum, every year we send out an addendum because we know things change between the time you submit an application and the time we get when we review your application. This year, there may be some other questions that we may add. So it's very important that you return the addendum, whether you have something to, because there will be questions that we may insert other than yes or no. Lisa, you want to go back to the terms and condition? Or am I good? All of this stuff is in the guidelines. So you can read more about that. And as I will be sending out the guidelines in a PDF form, and it'll be on our website shortly. There's also going to be, there's a document we have for how to, an online instruction manual, basically, kind of walk you through the application. Lisa's going to walk you through the application shortly. As Dana pointed out, acknowledging ArtsFairfax funding is very important. And she's pretty much laid this all out, so I'm not going to go over it again. Lisa? Yes, the eligibility. I need your IRS letter of determination. I need your 990 I need treasurer to report on audit if you have a budget greater than 600,000. You can either use the FY19 or an FY20 financials to determine your budget level and the request. A board list with addresses, obviously, because I have to know, 51% of your board members are residents or employees of Fairfax County. Key staff on board with bios. We're asking this year in the supplemental materials for organizational chart, kind of how you structure your organization and who reports to who.
If you have it.
Say
Don't
what?
make it up for the application, just if you have it.
Yes, if you have it. This is optional, underline optional. The cover sheet, that makes a really handy list of all of the things you've included in your supplemental materials. This is where you will put your links. So if you have performances or videos or clips, all of that will go in your cover sheet for the links. Work samples and supplemental materials I've kind of gone over. The video, don't make it any longer than 5 minutes because that's a lot for the panel to review. We don't want to bury the panel in lots of stuff, but we want enough materials so that it really illustrates and reflects the activities you're carrying out in your organization. We have an appeals process. Again, I think I'm not going to walk through all of this, but there is an appeals process if you feel the application was denied for some reason. We also have I can't go into that because we're not doing live anymore. This is all spelled out in the guidelines, is all I'm going to say. This, basically, you can read this for yourself, but write clearly and concisely. If you use acronyms, jargon, that doesn't help because we don't know what that means. It goes back to what I was saying before. It raises questions with the panel about what do you mean by that? Just so be clear what you're saying. And yeah, the financial information, the tip in here, just ignore that because again, we're not asking for a lot of financial information this year. Again, both Lisa and I are available and you can call me anytime you have any questions about anything. My cell phone numbers, you'll see it in my signature. You can call me because I'm still working at home, obviously. And, email, call me, whatever. I'm available. Oh, and by the way, I do work Monday through Thursday. I only work 30 hours a week, but that doesn't really apply because I will be looking at my email Friday, Saturday, and Sunday too. So if you have some kind of emergency, let me know. Deadline is the 14th of April. So you've got 6 weeks to get through this application. And I think because it is shorter, both of them, it should not be a lot of work in terms of gathering materials and dealing with Excel sheets and all that stuff. We do have 3 days of panel meetings in May. The announcement, as Lisa said, is in August and the awards. And again, it'll be 70% of your payment. And the final report is due August 1st, 2022. And once I go through the final reports and they're approved, then the final 30% will be sent to you. That's it. Yes, submittable. It's the application now is online and live, but I'm still, there may be some tweaks to it because this has been a very, there's been a lot of changes. So we're still fussing with it. So don't, for today, I would wait till like Friday to start your application because I'm still going through this to make sure that I haven't messed something up or there's some other glitch. So thanks.
So we're going to take a 5-minute break. It's 1 o'clock. So at 1:05, we'll just stretch a little bit. Then when we come back at 1:05, we're going to actually look at the submittable site and just run through the application, and then we'll have time for questions. So we'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Okay, we'll give it another minute. Okay, it's 1:05, so we're gonna start back and actually open up the application. So I'm gonna share my screen again. And this is the ArtsFairfax submittable portal. And just a quick review of this. Each organization gets one account, one logon. And so if there are multiple staff that are going to be working on the application, you will share that login. Here are the applications that we currently have open. And this actually reminds me that in case you were not present at the Capital One Hall virtual information session that we had last week, that is an amazing opportunity that is available to all the Fairfax-based nonprofit arts organizations for season 2. So I encourage you to, if you have not looked into this already and you need space for your performances, this beautiful site is going to be opening in October of 2021. And we are currently accepting applications for vetting for eligibility on behalf of the county for season 2. And that runs from September of 2022 through June of 2023. And there is a short application to fill out. And if you are eligible for a grant, you will most likely also be eligible, if you are a Fairfax-based organization, to perform in the 1,500 seat main theater and the black box at Capital One Hall at a greatly reduced rate. So check out the application, check out the other resources that are on our website on the Capital One Hall page for more information on that. Okay, so back to the operating support grant application. Today, we'll start out looking at this long form. Since most of you will be completing that form, the short form is only for organizations with budgets under $50,000. If your budget, your expenses from a recently completed fiscal year, you can choose 2019 or 2020, exceed $50,000, you are going to need to do the long form. So let's just take a look at it. So if you want to refer to the guidelines, you can open those from here. This will look very familiar to you. The eligibility questions are the same as last year. Uh-oh, something's going on with this.
Figures.
Wow, it was working earlier. Okay. Okay. Well, we will work out the kinks of the eligibility, and it's a string of questions that just check to make sure that you're eligible. And once you get to the end, if you are eligible, you'll be uploading a series of documents for verification that we discussed earlier. So that's your board list and your IRS determination letter and a treasurer's report or an audit if you're over $600,000. Then just the basic applicant information that we need, the name of your organization, your address. If your mailing address is different than your actual physical address, then you're gonna need to fill in, oh, that one's not working either, Kimber. Fill in some additional information for the physical address, where we can also check to make sure that the magisterial district that you're going to select down here, and we keep track of that for our own data purposes and for advocacy. Then we're going to ask you for the grant contact name. So this is the person and contact information who will get all the information for this particular grant application. So when we send out the addendum form that we were talking about earlier, it will get emailed to this person. The notification about the panel meeting schedule, all of that. If we do find that there's anything that we can't open or anything missing and we're trying to contact you, we're going to go to contact this person, the grant contact. Then if it's an emergency, we also ask for the chief administrator's contact. If we can't get through to the grant contact or the chief administrator, then we would go to the chair of the board. So you're going to fill all of that out and then add some information again that we collect for advocacy purposes, that we report to Fairfax County, who funds these grants, on the number of performances, number of exhibitions, your total number of events, and the total audience or attendees, participants, include that. Then some questions about your staffing. We also use this information about whether you have any paid full or part-time staff in order to divide the applications between the panel meetings. So we try to do organizations typically like one day, or the larger budget organizations that have at least one professional paid non-artistic staff member, and then smaller budget organizations that do not have professional paid staff another day. And so we're doing like with like. So that helps us with that. Then you'll fill in the one category that best describes the activity of your organization. And then for the long form, you'll select one of these 4 budget levels, because if you're under $50,000, you're going to be filling out the short form, which we'll look at again really briefly later as well. Then you'll fill in the amount requested, which is 15% of the actual expenses from the financials. Either you choose your 2019 or your 2020, and you can apply for up to $50,000 is the cap on the amount to request. Then this is the new-ish organizational profile, where you're going to discuss the history, mission, and relevance of your organization. And this is the link that we were talking about earlier to the census data to help you to complete this section about your geographic service area. The next section is programs and services. So in the first question, we ask that you please describe your programs and activities, sort of in general, that you're planning to take place during the grant period for FY 2022. And then this will refer to the programs and activities table down below here. And ooh, we are definitely getting some technical glitches here.
No, I don't know. This is really
Yeah, very weird. Everything was working this morning, and of course, so now I'm gonna just like hit refresh and see what in the world is happening here. Why is this table not popping up? Okay, well, the table, if you could see it right now, has, I believe, 4 columns, and the columns are for the date of the activity and then the type of the activity. So rather than listing everything out as we had requested in the past, for those of you who are previous applicants, we want you to just group your programs and activities by like the type of program. Is it classes? Is it workshops? Is it an exhibition? Is it musical performances? Whatever makes sense for you. And then you're going to be, rather than listing everything out, like list an approximation of the number of those, each of those different types of activities. Then you're also going to put down the zip code where they're going to be taking place for the venue, as well as the Fairfax County Magisterial District, if it is in Fairfax. If it's not in Fairfax, under that Magisterial District column, then you'll just put the location. So for instance, if it's in like Alexandria or Arlington, or even outside the DMV, you can put that there. If it's an online activity, under the zip code, then you'll just put that it's virtual or online. Let's see. So then also the next question is about your efforts to improve your program quality and how you're involving artists as well as other community members in your programmatic development and evaluation. And the next question in this section is to give one recent example of an organizational success and why it's considered successful. And in this section, we'd like for you to refer to those aesthetic attributes that include risk-taking, resourcefulness, sensory experiences, sustained resonance, impact, and value. And if you want more information about those, you have a link to that full report from Americans for the Arts. Also in this section where you're telling the success story, we'd like for you to talk about how your organization has evolved. And as Kimber was discussing earlier, how you've changed, throughout time. Yes, so this is an opportunity for you to share about that as well, the evolution of the organization as shown in this example of a recent success. The next section is community engagement. So your ability to engage with the community in order to achieve your mission. And let's see, the first question in this section is, what distinctive role do you play in Fairfax County and its communities? And this is particularly important for a city-based organization to, make sure that you are covering not just the city, but the county as a whole here as well. And talking about the ways that your organization works with the constituents of your community. So you can talk about both previous, current, as well as highlighting new or enhanced programs and plans for reopening and for the grant period in this section. Then we have the partnership table, which it looks like that also is glitching out and not going to open for us right now. So this table will be familiar.
Lisa?
Yes.
I have it up on mine. Do you want me to?
Oh, yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Don't ask me why. Let's see. Share my screen.
If that happens to you, hopefully you can just like reboot. And I mean, we've been working with this application for days now and was looking fine. So I don't know why that happened. Okay, will you, let's go back up to the programs and activities table just so that everyone can see that. And then we'll go back to the partnership table.
Okay.
So you don't have to use your imaginations.
So this is the partnership. This is the list of activity table.
Perfect, thank you.
So like I said, this is all to be grouped under, if you've got a main stage season, that would be considered a performance. So how many performances are you doing would be the number of occurrences. And the venue zip code obviously is the venue where this is going to occur. If there are multiple zip codes, well, we'll have to sort that out. But the magisterial district, obviously. And this is the partnership table. So again, this is all about the name of the organization, what kind of organization, meaning it could be a social service agency, could be a faith-based group, could be another arts organization. That's what that column is for. I think we touch on that.
Mm-hmm. So if you get in-kind space, whoever's providing that space for you, that would be, an example of what you would put in there. And again, under magisterial district, if it's not a Fairfax County based organization, just put in the locality there, please. And it is limited. You cannot add rows. So you only have the 8. So you're going to have to choose. I know some of you have amazing partnerships with many different organizations. You're going to need to pick the most important ones to you that you want to highlight in the application. And we understand that this is not going to be comprehensive.
Number 6 is a new question. We did this because there's been a lot of, we want to really understand how you engage your community outside the walls of your organization, basically. I mean, for instance, during the pandemic, there were a number of organizations that were doing work to support food banks. That's what I consider an activity outside the walls of your organization. It may not be specifically related to, but it is a way for you to engage the community in an activity that is not, within the walls of your space, where you're actually going out in the community and either supporting an activity, but it's also an opportunity for you to learn more about those people, and if they're coming into your organization or if they're not, and also how you might evaluate those activities and gather feedback on what you're doing to possibly grow or create new programs to serve them. All right. You want to keep going?
Yeah, sure. That's great. Thank you.
Sure. Number 7, I mean, this is the accessibility, people with different abilities. We've kept that in there. It is part of diversity, but we also kind of want to highlight this as well. How you inform your community. This goes back to the marketing presentation that Dana brought up, but we also want to know what your primary channels are for communicating with your constituents and with the community. That helps us because we have a better sense of what is a good channel for us to communicate with you and connect with you and follow you and all that good stuff. This is the staffing structure question. This is a little bit different than usual because again, how is the staff being engaged to carry out your plan? And you'll see some prompts on the right-hand side. You can upload, I've got to take out this a little bit here. You have the option, actually, there it is. Sorry, I thought this left out the word option. You have the option to upload, if you have one, an organizational chart that kind of explains all of this. And this again speaks to diversity. How does your staff, board, artists, volunteers, et cetera, reflect the population of your geographic area of service? This is, I touched on this earlier, the challenges and opportunity affecting the operation of your organization. How would you routinely identify them? What process do you have? And how do you address them? What evaluation procedures you have in place to measure and align this growth with your mission? Top 3 priorities for the next 3 years. I mean, we're all coming out of this pandemic, and I think there are a lot of changes that you've experienced, that you're thinking about, new ways to engage and share the work that you do with your community. So that's part of this as well. And again, how does it align with your mission and growth and the demographic changes, et cetera? This is where financials, unlike a traditional operating support application where we have an Excel sheet with like 6 worksheets to it and a detailed budget, we're not asking for that this year. So you have a choice. You can either click number 1, which is the worksheet that you submitted for your FY21 grant application for operating support. So if you don't have it, let me know and I can send it to you. Just the worksheet itself, just the financial worksheet. That's all we're asking for. Or option number 2 is your most recent board-approved annual operating budget, which shows your projected revenue and expenses for your organization in the current fiscal year, or a balance sheet or a profit and loss statement, or complete financial statements for your organization for the most recent completed fiscal year. Any one of those can be uploaded. You just have to choose one. This is where the differences between the previous year's budget, pre-pandemic basically, and the current fiscal year budget. We want you to focus in a little bit about what happened during the pandemic and the challenges you faced, again, financially, how you might be addressing that. So you can, we have a picture of what your pre-pandemic budget looked like, or at least you can tell us what it looked like, and the changes and the challenges you faced. That's what this narrative question is for. This question essentially is, obviously everyone's taken a hit. Most of us, you all have taken a hit. And so we just want to understand the steps you've taken to keep yourself on a good financial footing, and how you're going to reopen, because reopening is going to happen. So we're looking forward to recovery in the future, and how, what you need to move forward is what this question is about. And here are the required documents. This speaks to what's, the eligibility questions above. That's your recent 990, bios for key staff and board, cover sheet. You have 3 files to upload, work samples, supplemental materials. And down here is a handy dandy checklist, so you can just double check and make sure you've got all the stuff that's been required to be uploaded. And down here is who's submitting it, administrator. Basically, you're signing off that everything you've submitted is true and date of submission, and then you agree with the terms of use. And that's it.
Thank you, Kimber. Do you want to pull up the short form in case I'm having issues with that one as well, or do you want me to give that a try?
Try it and see what happens.
Okay.
I don't know why it's behaving this way, but
No idea.
no, that looks the same.
No, sorry, that's the long form. I have to get out of this one. Okay. So here's okay, this one
Works.
Yeah, okay. So this one, the eligibility is working. Yay. Very similar, actually exactly the same eligibility questions, but then we're going to try to head anyone off that might be in the wrong form for their budget size right up here at the top. So we're going to ask that question, and uploads right after entering the amount requested. And the same applicant information applies. But you'll see that there are much fewer questions. So in the organizational profile, that is actually the same first 3 questions. And in programs and services, also the same first 2 questions, but shortened community engagement. You just need to respond to your accessibility accommodations and how you inform the community about your activities. And then under organizational effectiveness, there's one question about how the organization carries out the mission and goals of the organization. And again, if you have a strategic plan, you can summarize it. And if not, you can just address your top 3 long-term goals. You have the same choice of financials for the upload, and the same section for the financial narrative, where you're explaining the elements of your financials and the differences between the current year and the previous year. And as Kimber was describing, talking about the impact of the pandemic. And then you can also discuss steps that you've taken to remain financially solvent. So any emergency grants, whether it's from us or any other government or foundation, let us know about that and any other steps that you're taking. And then the required documents, actually pretty much all the same document uploads. You also are required to submit 3 work samples and up to 5 supplemental materials. And you've got the checklist for all of the required materials. This is just for your benefit, just to make sure that you've included everything, since they come up in different sections of the application. And then down below, you agree to the terms and conditions, which are all listed out in the grant guidelines. And that concludes the short form. And
I can start answering questions.
yes, great.
I've got 2 questions here. One was about the request amount, the 15%, whether FY19 or FY20, and is that the actuals? And the point of giving you the opportunity to use a pre-pandemic budget was so that you could, because we know that, the budget size, if your FY20 budget took a severe hit, that your normal budget size was affected. So use a pre-pandemic budget that actually reflects what would be what you would consider a normal budget size for your organization, unless of course that's changed. And it is the actuals. That's the focus. In terms of if the schools are still online, virtual, my suggestion would be, in terms of zip codes, venues, if there are specific schools, you're still, if you're serving Fairfax County School and you're serving all of them, then all apply. But if you're serving specific schools virtually still, then I would identify those schools and the zip codes that they're in. That would be in your program tables. Let's see.
I see a question. Are entities based in the town of Vienna eligible? Yes, absolutely.
And the only reason
Part of Fairfax County.
Right. The city of Falls Church and the city of Fairfax, they're independent incorporated cities within the county. So yes, they're in the county, but they're independent entities. And so we treat them as such. Everybody else is a community within the county. So that's why we break it out like that.
Next question I'm seeing is the 15% of FY19, FY20 or anticipated for the upcoming year. You can apply for 15% of a recently completed fiscal year. Because of this current situation and the impact on your organizations, we're allowing you to choose if you want to use your FY19 or your FY20. It's up to you. Whichever one is more advantageous for you, that's what you're going to go with.
Yeah, and then just to go on to there was a follow-up about the schools. Yes, then the venues, if you're again serving schools virtually as a venue or wherever you are, whatever venue that is. However, I mean, I guess if we're still serving, schools are now open, so I'm thinking the venues are going to be open soon, but
yes, some of the schools are already opening up today. Okay,
Yeah.
another budget question is if we use the FY20 budget, should we use the budget or the actuals? So you need to use actuals. So that's why we're giving you the choice of FY19 or FY20. Somebody at, let's see. If anyone has any questions, also you can please be right. Oh, I see next up is raising their hand. Evan, can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I have a quick two-part question. If an organization elects to use an FY19 budget, which thank you for giving us that option, because obviously it will better reflect the organization we've all been building versus the craziness of last year. When we then start speaking in the various narrative pieces, should we actually, in terms of historical data, be more specifically talking about FY19, or does historical data, should that still include the stuff that happened in the previous year? And then the second half of that, in terms of looking forward, normally a sort of rule of grant writing is you talk about exactly what you will be doing with absolute certainty. And I think everyone here would agree that absolute certainty has gone out the window. And so do you have any guidance for us in terms of talking about what we are projecting to do?
Yes.
How we address that in terms of certainty versus crossing our fingers and all praying to whatever deity we choose to do so.
I would approach pretty much every section of thinking about everything on this continuum and talk about what you normally did, how you have been operating for the past year during the pandemic, accommodations you made, and what you're planning for during reopening and post-pandemic. So I think that will give the panel the best sense of your organization as a whole, in case they're not familiar with you from previous reviews.
Just follow with the future stuff though, do you think it is particularly advantageous or against us? How transparent should we be about the uncertainty? I mean, obviously everybody knows it, but do you have any suggestion
I think you
in
just
terms
have
of
to be honest, and that's always the best approach. Laura?
Yeah, just following up on that. Thanks for asking the questions. I was thinking, but I was wondering about the budget piece. So if I submit my FY19, which I have, an audit for and everything, is that all the financial information that I'm going to be using in each of the stages? Or is there a place that I'm also going to be sharing FY20? I'm on a calendar.
Yeah. So there's two separate sections. So you have the choice of FY19 or FY20. That's really more for like internal purposes for us to verify like your budget level, your usual budget level, and the amount that you're requesting. Okay. And then for the financial review, you have those other three choices. So we're just trying to be really flexible here. And if you want to, you can use your FY21 operating support financials form, or you have two other choices for current financials that you can submit.
Okay, I think I understand. I don't know. I mean, is the purpose that the grant panel, sees what your organization was, but is there some efficacy in having them see kind of what you became because of COVID? So
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think, like, again, our advice would be to look at all, three phases historically during the pandemic and what you're looking forward to. Definitely emphasizing like forward looking, this is what the grant is going to be funding. I see Claire Gesselman has her hand up.
Hi, I have a couple of questions. One is, If we applied previously and documents were submitted, like the letter of determination, do we have to upload those again, or is this, we're just starting
Yes.
from scratch?
Yes, yes, you need to
Okay,
upload it again.
okay. The other
Yeah.
thing is related to smaller organizations. That minimum grant amount seems like it's kind of a problem if you're trying, you know, if you're 15% of your budget is,
Mhm.
you know.
That's a great question. And we already have discussed that with our grants committee and have an approach to that. So the plan is that for organizations with very small budgets where like you might not make you know, that cutoff with your amount requested, then all the organizations that have at least the average score or above will receive that minimum grant of $1,000.
Okay, great, thanks.
And Kristen?
Hi, kind of jumping
Hi.
off Claire's question a bit about people who've previously submitted an application for the grant process. I was wondering if the short form is also available for people who've been previously awarded. So we have to do long form again then.
If your budget is over 50,000 of
Mhm.
the expenses from FY19 or FY20, then you do need to do the long form.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, I don't see any more hands, so let's just see if was there anything else in the chat that we missed? Fast track, I don't know the answer to that question. Will we be having the fast track grant in FY22? It's possible, but we're still like kind of waiting to hear what additional CARES Act funding might be available, and then evaluating all the other grant categories and discussing a lot of different, you know, possible categories, you know, could be new or could be returning to previous ones for some of the funds for FY22. So stay tuned for that. And now that we know what one piece of the puzzle with the county budget being announced, within, you know, the next couple of months, we'll be making an announcement about that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Once an application is initiated, can one leave and later continue the application? Yes, that's a great question. So when you're in Submittable, it actually auto saves. So as soon as you log in and you open that application and enter any information in it, it starts auto saving. There is a save draft button down at the bottom of the form, but it's really, you don't really need to use that. When you log out and log back in again, you can find the application on that main page. And then also in the upper right-hand corner of Submittable, where you see your name and your initials, there's a little drop down there where you can also see My Submissions. And that's where you'll go to find your application also after you've submitted it. If you needed to look at it, like if you wanted to print it or anything like that, we have more instructions about using Submittable in that online application resource, which is on our website.
Final questions? Concerns? We appreciate you hanging in here for an hour and a half or more.
Oh yes, I'm gonna share my screen one more time because I want to pop up our contact information again for Kimber and myself. So even though we are working from home, we are available to help you. And if you have any questions, you can email or reach us by phone as well. And also, if you have technical issues, contact Submittable. And I also wanted to end by encouraging you all, if you haven't already, to sign up for our workshop series. We have amazing thought leaders in the field of diversity, inclusion, access, who are leading these sessions, one every month. And the first one is kicking off next March 11th with One Fairfax, Carla Bruce. And she gave a presentation to our board, which was phenomenal. And so if you want to just get a good grounding in diversity, equity, access, and inclusion, I really encourage you to sign up for this workshop. Learn more about One Fairfax, learn more about the demographics in Fairfax County, and get more comfortable with this. And we're looking forward to a really great series. And I want to thank Reston Community Center, who is one of the funders for the Work Smart workshop series this year. And Lila, if you're still on, thank you so much for your support. So sorry for running over so much, and thank you all so much for sticking with us for this. And we hope that it's been helpful and look forward to seeing all of your applications.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It was very helpful.
I'm gonna go
Thank
try
you.
with
Have a
this.
great weekend.
Okay. You too.
Thank you.
Bye.